Here we are. I am back. I am better than ever. Finally back on College Baseball Done Bettor. We are one step away from Omaha, Nebraska as we get into the Super Regionals this week. I'm your host, Greg Larnerd, along with my co-host, Mr. Johnny VTV over there. Johnny, we've been doing some hits on my radio show on ESPN Chattanooga, and the folks are lucky that they didn't have to see us both on video, because it would have been a problem for the ladies in the audience. But now we are back together on video, and we're ready to talk some college baseball. How are you, my friend?
Doing well, man. Missed you last week. I had to fly solo, and it was a little lonely. Luckily, I had my Greg fix, and I was able to get on ESPN Chattanooga on your great radio show to do some spots, just to kind of hear your voice and just chop it up with you. Missed you, bro, and I'm happy to have you back. Let's get to it, bro. I'm so excited.
I wish I was coming with you to Wake Forest this weekend, but it's going to be an incredible ride for you guys out there to Wake Forest. Hopefully it'll be very celebratory, very financially worth it, all the good stuff, all the good vibes, all the thoughts and prayers to y'all out there. I know we can't bet that game because there's no lines on it, but let's kick it off there and let's talk Wake Bama.
Yeah, so obviously, like you just said, you can't bet it anywhere except for like Circa, but at the end of the day here, man, Wake Forest, the team I've believed in all year. I talked about them at 40-1 before the Super Bowl, and this is a team that I've just been hammering every single weekend. This is a Demon Deacons team that has the best pitching front to back. They have the best rotation in baseball, headlined by Rhett Lauder, a guy who is possibly working his way into top 5 consideration in the draft in July. They have an offense that is off the charts, littered with talent at every single position. Nick Kurtz, their first baseman, might be a top 5 pick next year. Brock Wilken, their third baseman, should be a first rounder this year. I would say within the top 25. Different producers everywhere. They're versatile. They don't make mistakes. Knock wood. They have just so many different ways to beat you. And I think when you look at this Demon Deacons team, this is the kind of unit that can break that curse for no number 1 seed winning the tournament since 1999, Miami. And with that being said, and I do expect them to win, this Bama team is no pushover. This is not an easy series. This is not a layup. Alabama is a battle-tested team that's gone through a lot this year. They have some impact players. They have a really good pitching staff, mainly in the bullpen. The starters they have some solid starters, and they lost a couple key guys. They lost a really high talented freshman, Grayson Hitt, early in the season. Ben Hess, he hasn't pitched in a long time. I think he's done for the year. So now Luke Holman's their Friday guy. He's pretty solid. I'm not saying Alabama's going to win, but I'm saying that you cannot fall asleep on them. I don't believe this team should have made it out of the regionals, Greg. I think they got very lucky against Troy, against Nicholls State with some unforced errors. But it doesn't matter. It's survive and advance. And Alabama survived, and they advanced, and now they're going to play my Demon Deacons in Winston-Salem this weekend. I do think there's a potential this series goes 3, but I think Wake Forest wins.
You're hoping, you're praying and hoping and wishing and all of the things.
And listen, here's the main thing. Alabama is not allowed to be good in 3 sports. They have a legendary football program. They had a basketball program that was number 1 for a while. They can't have baseball too. It's just, that's not fair. That can't happen. We can't let that happen, Greg. No way. And
you can't let that happen. You have to take care of that personally this weekend.
Yeah, listen, maybe I'll gas the tires on the team bus so they can't arrive to the field. I'll take matters into my own hands, whatever I got to do. But me being in attendance, I feel like I'm going to bring a lot of good juju after I drop like a nickel at the bookstore, just loading up on Wake gear, maybe like 2 shirts. We'll take care of $500. But I think Wake Forest. This is the team, man. I've talked about them all year since before the season started. I have to ride with my team. That's it.
Ride or dies. The Demon Deacons, Johnny VTV. All right, you mentioned there's no layups when it comes to the regionals or the super regionals or whatever. Everybody's going to have to really earn their way through this into Omaha and the road to Omaha. Hashtag the road to Omaha. But let's talk about a couple of the teams that are maybe a little bit of a surprise to be here. And the biggest one, Oral Roberts, they made it through the regionals. They're plus 120 at Oregon this weekend, who are the favorites, minus 150. Talk me through how Oral Roberts was able to make some history, get there, and that matchup against Oregon.
Oral Roberts is no slouch, dude, and they're getting respect in the market because of it. A number 4 seed typically is not a team that anybody would really worry about. They're not a team that would typically make it to this point without some sort of luck. Oral Roberts, if they played in a better conference, they probably wouldn't be a 4 seed. They play in the Summit League. They play in the middle of nowhere in Oklahoma, where the only people that really care about baseball there care about Oklahoma State and OU. Oral Roberts has now, after a bad start from Harley Gollert, they had 3 guys coming into last weekend with ERAs in their starting rotation, 3.5 or less. They have a stud closer, Cade Denton, who's a guy who's on the stopper list of the year, which is the best closer. They have an offense that has a lot of firepower. They get it done via the long ball, via the stolen base. They're very well versed in those both categories. They're led by Jonah Cox, a guy who's batting over 420, 27 stolen bases, 10 home runs, a guy who is the tone setter for this lineup. And I think Oral Roberts is the reason I took a ticket on them 500-1 before last weekend was because I think this team has a lot of firepower, but people just didn't understand it. And now we're going against an Oregon team who I didn't believe in all year. Okay, you beat Vanderbilt. I had questions about this Vandy team all season long. And, they're going to be without their key guy, their number 1 pitcher, Jay Stofall. If Stofall was pitching this weekend, I might be thinking this a little bit differently. But I think at the end of the day, man, I think Oral Roberts is the side here. And Oregon being the favorite, I'd still be surprised if they won because this Oral Roberts team has a lot of different ways to beat you. They're built for this moment. They came back from an 8-run deficit against the Washington Huskies over the weekend. And I think there's all this adversity that this team's had to go through. They're ready for this. I think this is their time. They're going to be the first 4 seed to make the College World Series since 2012 Stony Brook. Wow. Look out for my Golden Eagles, baby. I'm hoping they make it to the finals and they play Wake and Bake.
That would be great. We all love a good underdog story. And speaking of underdogs, Underdog Fantasy. That will give you a deposit match up to $100 using promo code FANTASYALARM at fantasyalarm.com/underdog. From one underdog to another, Indiana State made it through the Terre Haute Regional. They're plus 130 now at TCU, who pulled an upset within their regional as well against Arkansas. I'm shocked that they made it past the Razorbacks. Talk to me about TCU, how dangerous they can be, and does Indiana State have any shot here, Johnny?
TCU was a team a lot of people believed in coming into the year. They expected them to be the class of the Big 12. They weren't. They got – they made a little run in the Big 12 tournament. They won. Great. But the thing with them is they don't have pitching. And pitching, we know, is of the utmost importance this time of year. If that wasn't the case, then Campbell and Coastal would still be alive today. But in this particular series, I think TCU is the clear favorite. I feel like they win in 2 for this reason. Their offense is so good that if their pitching is just decent, it's going to carry them. They've won 17 of their last 19. They have a stud third baseman who's going to be a first rounder by the name of Braden Taylor. They have guys like Tommy Sacco, Elijah Nunez producing. They have a guy like Trey Richardson who had 2 home runs coming into last weekend, and he hit 4 in the regional round. They're getting a lot of production from their offense. So I just think that if their starters give them a chance, they're going to advance. This Indiana State team was something I didn't think they should have been a host. They shouldn't have made out of the region. They got lucky that Iowa's bullpen is so bad. I thought Iowa should have advanced, and they were in position to. Indiana State played with some heroics. They have a couple guys. They have a good Friday guy, Lane Miller. But at the end of the day, man, I think TCU is the hotter team. Winning 17 out of 19 is very difficult to do. And they went into a very difficult Arkansas region against a good team with a lot of pitching, and they put it on them twice. So I think TCU is going to Omaha. They're going to be playing in the next round, and they should make quick work of Indiana State. So I think 160 is a fair price, and I would lay it in both this game and the series.
All right, let's talk a little bit about another school that I don't want to say, I guess it would be considered an underdog. Let's go to the Duke Blue Devils. They got out of their regional, and they'll face Virginia this week, who are big favorites in this one. We've also got a total on this game. So talk me through this one. What do we like here? Dukies, Cavaliers, total over under for that game in game one.
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting team. I hate them because they beat Coastal and they're not better than Coastal. But the Duke Blue Devils are like the Tampa Bay Rays of college baseball. They don't have any premier starters. They have a bunch of solid arms that they could throw in any position. They have
Shane McClanahan's not premier?
Well, outside of Shane McClanahan. Well, it's actually funny. I was getting to that.
Okay.
So they have a really good reliever by the name of Charlie Bielenson, who's been huge down the stretch. So now Duke did have their McClanahan. His name was Jonathan Santucci, a guy who's probably going to be a first rounder next year. He had to get Tommy John surgery. Lefty with 95 to 97, a really good slide piece, high strikeout guy. So they're going to be without him. That was their McClanahan. But now their de facto ace is a kid named Alex Gao. He's a junk ball righty, but he gets outs. He keeps people off balance with the slider and his changeup. Those are his two key pitches. And Duke has a lot of seniority in this lineup. A guy like MJ Metz, who's literally playing on one ACL right now. He's playing with a torn ACL. You got Alex Mooney, who's a really good shortstop. Gavin Stone, Jay Bashirs. Like, there's producers in this lineup. But what they do is they play clean, fundamental baseball. And Duke beat Virginia earlier in the year in a 3-game series. They scored 26 runs when they played them. Virginia is the much better team on paper. They have a guy named Kyle Teal, a catcher who might be a top 10 pick this year. Jake Geloff, over 20 home runs. Younger brother of A's, Zach Geloff. Ethan Anderson, Ethan O'Donnell, Griffin Farrell. They have some decent pitching. Nick Parker's really blossomed and come on strong lately down the stretch. But at the end of the day, the Cavaliers struggled to beat ECU. That was really 2 coin flip games. Virginia did overcome in both. But Duke being 150 to 160 in the series, to me, is just a little bit too big. I think Virginia winning is definitely possible. But for the price, I don't know if I'd lay 190, 195 for this Cavaliers team, who I really haven't believed in all year. People are going to be like, oh, they're about a 50-win team. They have this, they have that. They lead the NCAA in batting average. Yes, there's just something about this team in the big moment. I just don't know if I can trust them. And in this round, they're facing a Duke Blue Devil squad that is just relentless and will do the little things and beat you like a Tampa Bay Rays team would.
So are you saying, hey, look, we're more on the Duke side, or you're saying I'm kind of avoiding this game altogether for this match?
I probably won't put out a play for this game, but if I would, I would. And I think Duke really has a good chance to take the series, but when you're getting the same price pretty much in one game as opposed to the series, I would just take the game. I would go game by game here. And because there's no confirmation on pitching, I'm only guessing it's going to be Alex Gao against Nick Parker. It is tough to get a bet against Parker, a guy who threw 6 innings, 2 runs, 12 strikeouts against this Duke team last time out. But just for the number, I think Duke is in play here. So I'd probably look at taking them each game of the series. And, if they end up winning and they're in this plus 140 to plus 160 range, you're going to win some money.
All right, I know you're not a huge fan of the Stanford Cardinal, but they made their way out of their regional out there in California, and now they have to face Texas. Texas, basically even money plus 100, and then you've got Stanford, who's a little bit of a slight favorite at home, minus 130. I've got a run total there at 11.5, over under for game one. What do you like about this matchup? Who do you like in this matchup?
I think Stanford's the side here. They have more playmakers. They have.
You're on the depth. Cardinal?
I am.
Oh my gosh!
The thing is,
I never thought I'd hear that.
The thing is, we're having 2 teams here that I didn't believe in, that I don't really like necessarily, thinking that like they're capable of winning it all. But I have to pick one of them. And Stanford's the better team. They have an SEC lineup, which is rare in the Pac-12. And they have a really good pitcher who's the best lefty in the country. Guy I think should be a first rounder, Quinn Matthews. He's a workhorse. He's a guy who's shown up in big moments. He's had some struggles lately, but kind of found it in the regional round. And, at the end of the day here, Stanford has a lot more firepower than Texas does. Texas has a very narrow way of winning. I thought the Longhorns' chance to win it was last year with Pete Hansen as the Friday guy, Ivan Melendez, the Hispanic Titanic, the Golden Spikes winner in that lineup. But at the end of the day, really their offense is led by Dylan Campbell, who is good. Porter Brown, he's solid. They had some great defensive plays that probably was the difference of why they won that Miami region last weekend. And I think at the end of the day, Lucas Gordon against Quinn Matthews is a phenomenal outing. Lucas Gordon's a guy who is probably the second best lefty behind Matthews. The X factor in this series, though, is LeBaron Johnson Jr., a guy who was a midweek guy who shut down LSU for 5 scoreless early in the year, worked his way into the rotation to that Saturday role. I think this is a 3-game series, I should say. I think it's a tight run differential. I think Stanford wins a coin flip because, like I said, they have more seniority, deeper, more playmakers. Tommy Troy is going to be a first-rounder, their infielder. And I probably would say game 1, if it is Matthews versus Gordon, it's an under at 11.5. But I'm just going to stick with Stanford here.
All right, if you're a fantasy fan, check out Fantasy Alarm All Sports subscription. Get all pro access to Fantasy Alarm for the award-winning DFS playbook. It's covering all 10 different sports, fantasy football, and NFL betting, plus tools, podcasts, and Discord chats as well. Those are always fire when you can get in the chat, start chatting with some of the experts, some of the other people that get a chance to play fantasy football. You throw some ideas off of each other, fantasy sports in general. And for a limited time, get all of this for 50% off. You heard that right, 50% off your first 6 months with promo code ALARM50. Again, that's ALARM50 on the promo code at fantasyalarm.com. Start your free trial today. All right, Johnny, as you see, I'm saving the best for last, and you and I are big SEC baseball guys. Let's start with our Tennessee Volunteers. They're minus 140. They're the favorites going to Hattiesburg and Southern Miss. We know about all the hoopla there. The NCAA committee member whose son is on the team. Dude's got 2 at-bats and has struck out twice, so he's not a big part of that Southern Miss team. But he's on the team. Southern Miss, they have a little bit more room there at their field, and they're sort of underdogs in this one. And game 1 with your boy Tanner Hall pitching, the total is 9.5. So there's not a big total there. Tanner Hall, Andrew Lindsay.
I think at the end of the day, I'm just not even going to talk about how this game was determined to be playing at Hattiesburg. Tanner Hall is probably going to go Friday. He's their best guy. Another guy who should be a first rounder. I think he's probably capable of being the 5th arm off the board. It's really difficult to not bet this guy at plus money at home. Nevertheless, Tennessee, I see them taking this series in 2 games because if Tanner Hall gets touched for 3 or 4 runs, there's usually a good chance that they can lose behind him. Andrew Lindsay is a guy for Tennessee that almost saved their season, the way he stepped in, similar to how Dylan DeLucia stepped in for Ole Miss last year. And this Volunteers team is drawing a lot of shades to Ole Miss, by the way. I just don't know if Southern Miss has the firepower to withstand this Volunteers team that's red hot, that's battle-tested, that's been through wars like they were not last year when they had arguably the best college baseball team ever assembled. Andrew Lindsay, if he takes game 1 against Tanner Hall, as I project that's the pitching matchup, it should be clear skies ahead for our Vols, bro. Games 2 and 3, they have 2 chances to win 1 game with Chase Dolly and Drew Beam. And then in some capacity, bring in like Seth Halverson and Chase Burns and Camden Sewell along the line. I think at the end of the day, Tennessee's hitting has to come through, kind of like how they were timely last weekend in Clemson, which, by the way, is a very difficult place to play. They were playing one of the hottest teams in the country, and they outlasted them in 14 innings. I just don't think Southern Miss has the firepower. I think Tanner Hall's their guy. They have a couple guys like Dustin Dickerson and Matthew Etzel and Slade Wilkes in this lineup, that are producers. But at the end of the day, Tennessee is not far behind Wake Forest in terms of the best pitching staff, and I think that's going to come and rear its head. And plus, the Volunteers are mad, dude. They know they should be hosting. They know they got gypped, and I feel like they're coming ready for blood on their way to Omaha this year.
I hope so. And I heard a stat earlier this week. I had a guy who covers Southern Miss on the show this week as well, and he did throw out a stat to me. I know they don't have – they're not as deep as Tennessee pitching-wise, but the pitching's been good the last 11 games, a team ERA of just over 3. So they've got some good arms. They've been pitching well. And, it could come down to whatever offense is more timely in terms of their hitting. And I don't think Christian Moore is going to hit 700 again, but – you got to look for him a little bit better out of Blake Burke. Maui Ahuna's got to stop striking out. So hopefully that'll kind of kick it into gear a little bit. The offense will, and they'll be able to get back to Omaha the second time in 3 seasons. All right,
And
let's stick it
real quick, one more thing about that. The good thing is Southern Miss doesn't have any like dominant lefty starters. I don't believe so. I don't think Matt Adams or Billy Oldham are lefties. Nico Mazzara has kind of been moved to the pen in the utility role. Tennessee's offense has seen some struggles against lefties. So the fact that they're only going to see righties, like Maui Ahuna, especially Blake Burke, like they're not really great against left-handed pitching. And the fact is, they're 2 catalysts in this lineup. So I think that is a huge advantage for them.
It certainly is. Let's continue on with the SEC here, and let's go to Kentucky. They're underdogs at LSU in a big way, but Johnny, should they? It seems like this LSU team sort of snuck their way and kind of got lucky with the regional that they got put in. They'll be back at home at Baton Rouge. But Kentucky's coming in here. They just won their Lexington regional. Talk to me about this one. We know about Paul Skeens. We've been talking about it all year. The other starter's not as good. The bullpen stinks. The offense is really good. What do you think about this matchup here, Kentucky at LSU?
Kentucky's kind of lost a little bit of its luster that it had in the first half. And, this is a Wildcats team that challenged LSU when they played. LSU only won the series by 1 run because it was 1-1 going into the Sunday game, and they won 7-6. And Kentucky was scratching and clawing and really gave them a battle. The thing of it is, though, the Wildcats – I just don't think they're that good. They're like the SEC team, like comprised like Duke is for the most part. But, you're already almost down in a 1-0 hole or 0-1 hole because you're throwing Paul Skeens on Friday if you're LSU. No doubt about it. They touched him a little bit, 6 innings, 4 runs in the first start, but he struck out 13. And I just think at the end of the day here, Paul Skeens is going to come ready to shove. The Wildcats don't have an answer in the pitching department. They don't have any reliable starters that they can throw out there. They don't have a lefty that they can oppose this LSU lineup and shut them down. And, if that happens and LSU takes game 1, I just don't really know if Kentucky's built to win 2 straight against this team with the kind of firepower they have. And if they get a decent start from Ty Floyd and, Thatcher Hurd's been a lot better. Riley Cooper was solid this weekend. The bullpen was a lot better. And, I'm not saying they're by any stretch of the imagination fixed. I just think it's too tall of a task. And I think 230 is a fair number. I think this is one of the rare times I would lay 230 with Paul Skeens on the mound. I think the series price at 220, 230 is fair. I'd look to parlay LSU maybe with TCU and possibly Tennessee for like a plus 130 if you're going with TCU, because I just don't see LSU losing game 1. The only shot Kentucky has against Skeens is if they do what Texas A&M did in the SEC tournament, and they just get his pitch count up and get him out after like 4 or 5 innings. Then you have a chance to get to that bullpen. That's the only way.
Yeah, and then your starter on the other side has to be good, holding that LSU team down, not getting in too big of a hole. So it's a tall task for the Wildcats for sure. All right, in our final game, we're sticking in the SEC. South Carolina, the underdog Gamecocks. They'll be at the Florida Gators, plus 130 to South Carolina, minus 160 to Florida. There's no, run total in this one. Johnny, talk to me a little bit about this one. What do you like? Who do you like? What play are we looking at this weekend?
All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go South Carolina on the series, and I'm going to tell you why. And it's not only because South Carolina swept Florida earlier in the year in Columbia when they were red hot, looking like possibly the number 1 team or number 2 behind Wake Forest, but South Carolina has something that Florida doesn't, and that's a pretty good bullpen. Now, I know Florida's bullpen showed up in the regionals against Texas Tech, which to me is it's not like a huge feat. But, South Carolina is a deeper team than Florida. Florida is a great team, don't get me wrong, and I really like Florida. But they rely so much on a key select group of guys to do a lot of their production for them. And, I'm nitpicking here. Like, Florida is a great team, and if they won as the favorite, it's not surprising. But the bullpen is the big issue for me. And when you look at what happened in the series the first time around, Hurston Waldrop was bad. 6 innings, 6 hits, 5 runs. Yeah, he struck out 10, gave up a couple home runs. But when you look at a performance like that, you can't really pitch like that and expect to win. Especially for a South Carolina team that is probably going to throw Jack Mahoney on Friday, who's been pretty good himself. And I think at the end of the day, the only way for Florida to win is Waldrop and Sproat, who Sproat did throw really well against them. They have to be 6 innings, 7 innings, 2 runs or less, 3 runs or less, and really make that bullpen only have to go 1 or 2 innings and shut down a South Carolina offense that's starting to find its groove again. A guy like Ethan Petrie could throw the team on his back and carry them. But they have a lot of other producers at different positions. I think South Carolina is the better team. I think they're the deeper team. And while it wouldn't surprise me to see Florida win, the Gamecocks should not be plus 130. I think they're the right side. I think this is a 3-game series. And I think at the end of the day, the Gamecocks, finding their groove again, will go into Gainesville, pull this out. And I got news for you. I think the winner of this series is going to play in the finals on that side of the bracket.
Interesting. Okay. I like that. SEC flavor. What side is Tennessee? Are they on the other side of the bracket?
Left side. So Tennessee. Okay. So if everybody wins like I think they should win, if Wake wins, Stanford wins, LSU wins, Tennessee wins, they're all on the same side. Meanwhile, the winner of this game, South Carolina, Florida, the winner of Virginia, Duke, TCU, I think, and Oral Roberts, I think, they would all play each other. And this is the only weekend in the College World Series tournament outside of the finals that replicates a normal weekend in the regular season. 3-game series, and it's exactly like how it would be in the middle of the regular season. But next week, you have 4 teams, and they mix and match. So it's bizarre. So you have 4 teams put into a bracket on each side, and I don't really know what determines who's going to play who, but that's double elimination. So it's very bizarre. But in this particular week, you're back to a normal 3-game schedule against one opponent. Yeah,
that's a tough break for our Tennessee Vols being on that side of the bracket. It seems like the right side's a little bit easier.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I do think it's a little bit easier, the right side, not by much, because Virginia's still playing pretty good baseball. TCU's hot. Oral Roberts, you can't fall asleep on. But at the end of the day, I think the Vols are right where they want to be. They have a chance to play. They have a chance to probably play LSU in the first game if it goes. Like, I think LSU and Tennessee will meet again. And considering how fiery Tony V is and competitive this team is, I know these two want to play each other again for something that really matters. And I can't wait to see that if we're going to.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to have to face Paul Skeens, though, in game 1 of a College World Series. Last time they got there, they were one of, 2 teams that went 0-2, 2 and out. So I'm hoping they can at least get a couple of games there at the College World Series, if not win it. They do have some good pitching depth. If the pitching depth can carry them a little bit, they'll have a good chance if they can get through Southern Miss here. Johnny, it's always good to see your face. Always good to do this thing with you, man. Enjoy Wake Forest this weekend. Want to say thank you to Jared Moore behind the scenes doing his thing. Hopefully, again, we're wishing, hoping, and praying for you this weekend that things work out. And if it does, again, I'm expecting some Wake gear from you to be shipped to Chattanooga after I've had you on the show a couple of times, and been nice enough to do that for you.
Of course, we got my boy rocking Wake Forest on his Tennessee show.
I'll do it. I'll do it just for you, man. Just for you. If
what size do you wear? XL or
large?
Large.
Yeah. T-shirt, sweatshirt, large. All that. That's good for me.
Maybe Uncle John will deliver a present by weekend's end. Who knows?
All right, now I'm going to be rooting extra hard for Wake Forest. You can find him up on Twitter @_JohnnyBTV, as it says there. Enjoy the games, enjoy the weekend. Safe travels, my friend. And again, if you want to find me, it's @Greg Larnerd, as it says right there. This has been College Baseball Done Better, and you can follow the Better Sports Network up on any of our social media platforms @Better Network. Again, College Baseball Done Better. When we join you next time, we'll be talking about the road to Omaha. Have a great day.